Are you being real enough to recognize your own magnificent power to be worthy now? What that means is that I believe everybody is whole and complete right now. That doesn't mean that we don't have more things to learn or more experiences to have in our lives. But if I start from a place of unworthiness, and I start from a place of not being enough and being scarce and my ability to experience joy, love, happiness, gratitude, all those things, then I'm constantly going to be in the place of shadow hunting. And the biggest power I can have immediately in this moment is to be worthy enough to be myself and to follow my passion, to follow my heart, to follow my joy, to follow my bliss. And the questions that we ask ourselves determine the answers that we get. So if we ask a shitty question, we get a bad answer. So instead of asking, well, where can I be more, powerful? Where can I be more joyful? The issue that I found with questions like that can be, now I'm starting to think to myself, well, where am I not? And I start looking at my holes as opposed to where I'm full. And if I start from a place of full, of like my own magnificent power to be worthy right now, not worthy if I do this or worthy when I get good grades or my parents accept me or I'm walking down the street and women just throw themselves at my feet, then I can actually create what I want in the world as opposed to being a victim to my circumstances or to the environment or to whatever else.
There are over 7 billion people, but only one of you. Are you being real with yourself and those you care about? That's what the One and Only podcast is all about. Being true to who you are, even when it's not easy. I'm Mark Shapiro, and each week we dive below the surface to bring you honest storytelling, valuable tips, and inspiration to enrich your relationships, careers, and overall lives. It's time to get real. Welcome to episode 102 of the One and Only podcast. I'm Mark Shapiro, and today we're going to get to know the one and only Benjamin Rolnik. Ben is up to a huge game. He is so incredibly intelligent and giving and loving and passionate and energetic, as you saw and experienced there in the opening. We have an awesome interview for you today. As I mentioned, Ben's up to a big game. He is the founder of Integral Fitness, Star Lab, and he throws the Conscious Family Dinners in Los Angeles. I'm thrilled to have Ben on the show. I know you're going to love this episode. We talk about a whole number of different subjects, and Ben is so open and honest and real with us in today's show. Before we get into the episode, I wanted to take a second to reflect, and that's because on Friday, January 27th, I turned 35 years old, and it's crazy that I'm entering into my upper 30s, and I've experienced a lot. I've been doing this whole life thing for 35 years now. I've experienced joy, pain, growth, and so much love, and it's definitely been quite the ride. And I realize that all of the choices that I've made throughout my life, as well as the choices I have not made, have all led me here to this exact moment. And I'm really fortunate to say that there is absolutely no place in the world I'd rather be than right here, right now, doing my best to live my truth and to make an impact in this world. And I'm also so incredibly fortunate to be surrounded by so many inspiring people like yourselves who fuel my passion and creativity and my willingness to dare greatly. So I'm really excited about what's ahead, and I look forward to spending many more years doing my thing, living my truth, whatever that looks like, and standing for what I believe in, and enjoying this wild, wild ride that we call life alongside the people that I love most, and hopefully with a family of my own one day. That is my biggest wish for myself, both in this year and the year ahead. So before we get into the episode, a real quick, wanted to let you know I've got my free daily email series, Winning Inspiration. Wake up to a quick read to lift you up in the mornings. It's absolutely free, so there's no reason not to check it out. And you can sign up for it at areyoubeingrreal.com. Also, we've got the next cycle of winning weeks starting in late March. And while it's still a couple months away, Make that commitment to yourself now. If you think Winning Weeks is a good fit for you, it is my powerful 8-week mastermind for high performers. And we are running a special where you can get Winning Weeks for 50% off. So in order to lock down the rate, the incentive is to sign up now. So we've already got some great people on board for the next cycle of Winning Weeks, and I'd love to have you as well if you think it is a good fit for you. So it is time for the episode. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Episode 102 with the one and only Benjamin Rolnik. What was an 8-year-old Benjamin Rolnik like?
Wow, 8 years old. I love the number. It reminds me of a snowman. And my 8-year-old self was fun-loving, free. I remember giving sermons to my mom in bubble baths about what the world would be like and power and all of these really interesting things. And I thought I was also going to die at about 25 years old. That's what an 8-year-old version of me was. Climbing trees, causing naughtiness, running away, and just living fully self-expressed in the most exuberant way, not wanting to go to bed and not waiting to wake up in the morning, just like always going on.
I see the same exact person right in front of me today.
It's taken a long time for me to get back to 8 years old. I had to get through 13. That was the most difficult year.
So, Benjamin, you toured around with Michael Jackson and the Rolling Stones and Aerosmith as a kid. What was the most profound moment you shared with one of those icons and why?
Wow, what an interesting question. When you say most profound, I really have to think about it. I think that the most profound thing that I experienced was their unhappiness. The most profound thing was the conflict in the inner workings behind the scene, that the show must go on. And here are people who are absolutely extraordinary putting on a show and entertaining. And right before they get on stage, right before they give the performance of a lifetime to make their fans scream and cry and feel like they've got 10 times their money's worth, they might be in an argument or a fight, or their lives might be breaking down. And that people can be at the height of their career. They can have more success than God and literally be miserable. I mean, take Michael Jackson, for example. I mean, nobody overdoses on painkillers because they're just so magnificently joyful. I mean, and what reason did he have not to be? Mm-hmm. Here's a person who had more influence, who touched more lives than anyone on the planet. I mean, literally, he's one of the most famous people. If you ask who's known in every country of the world as a celebrity, it's not necessarily Justin Bieber, but Michael Jackson is it. Everybody knows Michael Jackson. He's an international icon. And he was totally tortured, totally tormented. And I think that level of disillusionment really early on, of seeing behind the scenes, of seeing what these things are really like at the highest echelon, where most people dream upwards and they go, I can't wait to be there. And then being at that place going, wow, I can't wait to get out of it, was profound.
You're a man who loves to laugh.
Yes.
So when do you laugh the hardest?
Oh my God. So I laugh the hardest. So you know what I love about this question is that it's when, like, why do I laugh? I laugh because some things are really funny. And then so often I'll also laugh at myself. I'll laugh at the tension when I see my ego coming back up. And I think to myself, oh my God, that feeling of shame or that feeling of anger or fear is just so utterly human of me. And it's this place of compassion of, oh my God, instead of feeling my fear, I can laugh at it for the joke it is. So I was neighbors with Ed McMahon growing up. He was the sidekick of Johnny Carson. And one of the things that he said to me before he died was that without humor, what's the point? Without laughter, what's the point of life? And for me, you don't even need to find anything funny. If you could start laughing right now, immediately, like I make myself laugh about anything. It adds so much joy, not just for me, but for everyone I'm around. Mm-hmm. Some people hate it though. I can't like. There are so many things I do that trigger the shit out of people. By the way, can I say words like that?
Yes.
Okay, girl.
Yes. I don't know what's going to trigger people more, the laughter or the language.
Yeah, both will come out
Great,
today.
perfect. What are 3 moral rules you'll never break?
When you say that, the first thing that comes to my mind is the first moral rule is that I would never want to break is to never break any moral rules.
Nice.
The very first one that comes to mind. And then the second and the third would be kind of like the first rule of Fight Club is do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is do not talk about Fight Club. I've learned that morality is such a construct in our lives and it's created such good in the world. The spiritual technology of religion has added to our culture in tremendous, magnificent ways. But it also leaves people thinking that some rules are absolute. And I think certain things are good. But I think more often than not, by inventing the good in our lives and subscribing to it, we become believers. And the problem with believers is that the middle 3 letters of belief are LIE. And if we tell ourselves the same lie, big enough, loud enough, with enough frequency, we tend to believe it. Now, you know who said that?
No.
Adolf Hitler.
Ugh.
So there's a danger with being a believer. And it doesn't matter whether or not we believe in spiritual things, we're all one, we're all made out of love, or we believe in things like, okay, let's destroy the Western world and put all our women in burqas. Belief is a dangerous thing in general, even if what we believe in serves us.
What are you insecure about?
It's so funny to say this, but I'm insecure of my power. And it's a really weird thing to say because it sounds so arrogant. But what it really means is that the thing that frightens me the most is feeling complete and whole and feeling really good when other people don't. And wanting to fit in with people who are miserable and victims in their life and not being a victim of mine. So not standing for that conversation. And the problem with that, this is a story, is that in high school, I went through this monk phase and I wore all white and I was giving all these speeches about how we can love each other more. And I started this thing called Free Food Fridays with some friends. It turned into this whole jamboree of music and free food and people making art together in the courtyard. And I just remember getting things thrown at me. I remember kids absolutely hating me and attacking me for wanting to spread beneficence to the world. So that is a deeply embedded trauma response in me. It's not intellectual. I don't intellectually sit and think to myself, oh, I've got nothing to offer. But as soon as I'm confronted by somebody who doesn't seem to be functioning at the same wavelength, meaning they're in victim mode, they're drowning in the ocean, and I'm the lifeguard coming up to swim to them, the first insecure thought is I'm going to be hurt by this.
Yeah, I think that's something that we can all relate to in some way, shape, or form. In a time in our life when we spoke our truth and we're told not to, or we're shamed for doing it.
Well, that gave me the chills. Yeah, gosh.
What's something you are lying to yourself about?
So much. I mean, I lie to myself about everything. I think that's how I've managed to...
Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this earlier, that I'm a product. I'm 100% a product. I went through different iterations of the product of Benjamin Rolnik. And I used to not understand what it meant to be a product because I was a victim. And so by creating myself, which I do every single day, I literally created myself. I construct myself. I had a vision for who I wanted to be and who I'm still becoming, and I'm constructing it. And that's all a lie. I mean, it's all a lie. It's a belief. It's a lie. And I can change it at any moment. And I think that there are phases, like during times in my life which I was most depressed, were times that I studied the most amount of existentialism and the most amount of deconstructivist philosophy or constructivist, whatever you want to call it. And what I learned from all of that is that it's all a fucking lie. It really is. And there's no way to get out of it. That's the fucking problem. And the more I've been honest with myself about that, the more freedom it's given me to not worry so much about it.
What is your intention these days?
My intention is to be a blessing in the life of every single person I come into contact with, both personally and also walking down the street.
What is something that is real for you in your life right now?
It's a great question. Real. Because the thing is that when you ask me that question, I go into philosopher mode and I think to myself, by real, does he mean difficult, challenging? By real, does he mean this cold brew coffee to my right and this water to my left? What is real for me? Because instantly what I think to myself is everything and nothing. I think what I've learned in my life too, and it's been one of the reasons why I've become such a good facilitator, is that I've learned that nothing is real. That it's all a construct. It's a construct of my beliefs. It's a construct of my mind. And to give you a really simple example of that, if I push you and you think that we're playing, you're going to feel really good and happy and you're going to smile about it. But if I push you and you think that I'm an absolute bully, then I'm going to have been this victimizer in your life and you're going to feel like shit about it. But what's real in that situation? It exists only in the noumenal world. The phenomenal world is real. We never access that. That's like what's happening in sensation. But I experience the world through my senses and through how that's articulated in my brain, in my nervous system, which is not real. It's just Ben. And Ben changes based on what I learned on Mark's podcast. You know, Ben changes based on our conversation earlier today. So, man, did I answer your question? I feel like I'm going to be really difficult for you.
No, this is amazing. I'm just asking questions and getting out of the way. You're sharing so much wisdom and fascinating perspective with us. So thank you. Keep bringing it. The last question of this not so rapid fire round. None of my show's episodes are usually rapid in this rapid fire round, but here we go. What makes you one of a kind?
Man, it's so interesting. I think I'm in a totally contradictory mode today because I think to myself, I'm not. I'm totally ordinary. I think that what makes me one of a kind is maybe recognizing that I'm not special and being so okay with that. And knowing that my desire to be special, my desire to be extraordinary has been one of the most dramatically devastating forces of my entire life. And that desire for significance has hurt me more than it's helped me. It might have contributed towards my question, how do I make this bigger? But then I always hit a wall. And the wall usually comes in terms of burnout, exhaustion, getting sick, whatever it is. And then I'm right back at square one as opposed to pacing myself and being like, no, I'm just a fucking human.
You're an ambitious guy and you're making a big impact in the world. So how do you go about that?
How? Well, I'm very disciplined.
Okay.
Yeah, I found that my life works when I'm extremely disciplined. So I've actually recently turned into a morning person. I've been one of those people that said my entire life I'm a night owl, and I flipped it. I just decided one day, okay, cool. I'm actually going to wake up earlier in the morning because that means I'm going to accomplish more, and I'm not going to have that experience where I say to myself at the end of the day, why didn't I mentally exercise or exercise more today? And I get it all done. But it's because I'm disciplined. And what discipline means is being able to recognize that a decision is a choice and a sacrifice. And when I'm not privy to the sacrifice of all my decisions, then I make bad choices because every choice has a cost in it. And when I choose to eat the ice cream and when I choose to sleep in a bit more, it has sometimes a devastating consequence for me that I really don't want to pay. So I'm very privy to that. So how does my ambition work? My ambition works by focusing not on the result that I want to create, but it focuses on like the construction of my life in order to enable that.
Welcome to the show, the one and only Benjamin Rolnik. Yeah.
So this
conversation has been a long time in the making. We met pretty much exactly a year ago at one of your circles.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, January of 2016. And I knew I wanted to have you on the show from the get-go. And for whatever reason, we're doing it right now today. And I think it's perfect because you are on fire right now. You are so dialed in, as everyone can tell, flowing, passionate, incredibly wise. So I'm thrilled that we're having this conversation right now.
You just gave me the chills. Thank you. That touched me. It like made my eyes water a bit.
Hey, just speaking my truth, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Ben is a true student of life. As you've already heard, as an 8-year-old was already giving sermons and inspiring people and talking about freedom. And you've spent the last 15 years of your life exploring what it means to be integrally fit. So you grew up traveling around the world with the Rolling Stones and Michael Jackson and Aerosmith, and you've also had a journey that's led you on many different paths. I got these from your website, but I think it's interesting to list off a few because you've really worn so many hats, and that provides context for everyone listening as to all the different experiences that make up Mr. Benjamin Rolnik. So you were a yoga and meditation teacher, a silent and celibate monk, a raw food vegan, a paleo crossfitter, an existential philosopher, a mental athlete, a fashion photographer, a gypsy poet, a trainer of circle work, a talent manager in Hollywood, a technology startup entrepreneur and advisor, and an event promoter. Just a few things right there.
Yeah, I've done a lot.
And you have done so many different workshops. I mean, in terms of someone who is committed to his self-development, you do everything. You've done both Landmark and MITT in the last couple of months alone. You've done the Mankind Project and pretty much all of Tony Robbins' seminars. So you're a true wealth of knowledge. And you've got your own things as well. You've got Star Lab, which I definitely want to get into and learn more about. Integral Fitness, which supports people in getting emotionally fit and mentally fit, spiritually fit, together with the physically fit, which is something that we know we're supposed to do, but you really focus in on the rest of the formula to inspire people to live authentic lives. You've also got the Conscious Family Dinners, where you bring people together to play in authentic ways, which I absolutely love.
I'm getting to learn about myself here. Wait,
yeah, right?
Do that? That's cool.
You already alluded to this in the preceding questions here, but you're a firm believer that everything that we want already lives inside of us, and we're here to unlock that vault. So definitely want to delve deeper into specific ways metaphor. That people can do that throughout this episode.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. So I want to hear more about you. What have you been through? What are the pivotal moments in your life-changing moments that have shaped who you are?
How much time do we have? Everything. I'm the kind of person, so Henry James said, be the kind of person on whom nothing is lost. And when I was younger, I've always been a writer. I was talking about this with my mom the other day. I've always carried around this small notebook in my pocket. I probably have thousands of them. And I've always written and recorded my life.
Did you go back and read them?
No, almost never.
No.
Yeah. Now I'll do it more because I'm actually working on writing projects. But more often than not, it was almost an archaeology of my experience. And I found that so often why people do drugs is that it puts, and when I say drugs, I mean more hallucinogens and for mind expansion purposes, is it puts a magnifying glass on reality so that they can actually have a new inquiry, a new relationship with it, and see things that they missed. And I don't know why I started doing it. In fact, maybe we'll discover it on this podcast. But maybe since I was 8, just recording everything, every single thing about my life. You know what I think it was? I think it was because I experienced so much pain. I didn't want my pain to go wasted. I wanted it to be meaningful. I wanted
what was causing the pain
to mean something. So nothing. I mean, but in my little mind, everything. And I could tell stories about it in terms of, you know, my relationship with my parents, how I felt insignificant, how I mean, I was a fucked up little kid. I literally, like, totally fucked up in every way. And when I say fucked up, I mean, like, unrecognizably fucked up, like totally bipolar, totally ADD, totally all of those things. And I mean, you know, by 12, I was selling drugs and starting fights and stealing things and jumping kids and wanting to hurt people. I was that sort of kid.
Hard to imagine. I see you being a little wild, but the rest of the picture seems just more drastic
violent.
than I would have expected.
Yeah, totally violent, totally enraged. And I mean, I could try to piece it together, and I have over the years, but I don't know, the more personal development work I've done, the less story has really become significant to me. And not in the sense of learning from stories. Stories are so valuable. That's why we go to the movies. That's why we love people sharing. But I mean literally in terms of the hard, cold art and science of transformation, where the more I dig into story of my past, the more I pull bullshit out, which has nothing to do with why I'm the way that I am. And the more I focus on what I want to create for myself, the more that opens up as a possibility. Free and clear of the past. So why? I mean, I could say, well, you know, my mom would leave me at school for hours. You know, I would be like, literally, I remember it got dark sometimes before she came to pick me up, and it was cold and I didn't have a jacket. And, you know, I was totally alone and a little kid. And then she would show up and she would be on the phone, and she was always working, and I wanted her to be closer or whatever. And, you know, it's like, so those things had an impact. They definitely had an impact. What was the question again?
Yeah. What have you experienced? What have you been through that have shaped who you are?
Man.
You were saying you write out these notes.
Yeah. So that was the point, right? Because then I started talking about, okay, because I didn't want my pain to go to waste.
Yeah.
And then it also became not only an archaeology of my soul, but also an opportunity for me to learn and grow. And for me to learn and grow from every single moment. When I was first learning how to play piano, one of my teachers told me about this pianist, Keith Jarrett, who would do these concerts where he would improvise. He would get up on stage in Carnegie Hall and just start improvising, and that's what he would do. And what he would say is that he learned from every single piano player, the worst and the best. And that's been my life. Everything is a learning moment for me. Everything is a lesson. That's not a concept. It's not a philosophy. It's how I've operated and how I've survived in the world. How can I learn from this? Maybe that's my primary question. Maybe that's what I ask myself. Not necessarily how can I get bigger, but how can I learn from this? It's so real to me. I get to learn about myself even doing this podcast with you. I'm learning from you and how you're sitting right now. I'm learning from you. And what
check my
questions you're asking.
posture.
But that's what I'm saying. The whole world is a mirror for me. And the more I've recognized that I get what I want based on what I give, the more I've gotten what I want in my life. And the less I've waited for things to happen to me, and the more I've allowed things to happen through me.
Love it. Give us an example. Just take us there as to something that maybe was counterintuitive for you at the moment, but you gave and it opened something up for you in your life.
Something counterintuitive for me that opened something up in my life. Okay, let's think of a good one. Man, so many. So we were actually talking a bit about this earlier. In college, I wanted to sleep with as many women as possible. And it came from a deep place of inadequacy, because the approval that I got from women meant that I was a valuable man. And part of that was because I thought that I had a small dick, and I probably do. But the more women that I got with who seemed to be pleased by me, the less I had to face maybe the reality of that, you know, situation. And the thing is, it could never be enough because I felt inadequate. But the problem with it was that it never felt clean to me. So I was constantly trying to chase women to feel better about myself, when really I actually felt worse about myself because I was chasing all these women, having these superficial relationships and using them. They were using me too. So, I mean, come on, we're both guilty in that situation. But not coming from a place of power where I thought to myself, I am acting and behaving in a way that is consistent with what I want to create in the world, and instead choosing to live in a way which was totally just unconscious. I don't think that's a good one. I'm trying to think of a better one. I'm thinking about all these stories about big decisions that I made. Okay, sorry, I lost the question. What was it?
Yeah, something that was counterintuitive for you, but you chose to give.
Yes.
Instead of kind of, I guess, perhaps being a taker. And
I got the perfect one.
Game changer.
I got the perfect one. This was one of the biggest game changers in my life. Okay, this was one of my earliest, true spiritual awakening moments. Probably happened when I was 14 years old. I was talking about how I had conflicts with my mother, I had conflicts with my family, all of that, and I was a bad kid. But I won't go into the story, but there was a long story about my transformation there. And there was a moment where I started recognizing my anger and my charge towards my mother. How instantly I would be charged. It didn't matter what she did. It was just, she said something, I was like, no, fuck you! And I would just go crazy. And everything, I just wanted to cause her pain and reciprocate. I was in that tit for tat mindset. And I remember I would draw on my walls with Sharpie. I tried to think of the worst things I could do in order to hurt her to get back for all the things that she had hurt me about, whatever it was. But at the same time, during parts of this, I was growing more awake. I was growing more conscious. So I didn't want to behave like that. And I think that there are probably a lot of people listening to this who are in this really tough place where they have become aware of a new reality for themselves, but they haven't fully actualized it in their life. And they can beat themselves up where now they realize, listening to you, that like, holy shit, I'm not being authentic here. Holy shit, I was just in a conversation with my boyfriend and there's something really important I need to say to him. And I didn't say it. Why didn't I say it? And then they start beating themselves up and wondering what's wrong with them and all of that stuff. So I was in that place around my anger towards my mom and why I wasn't being loving. And then the most counterintuitive thing for me to do was just to start being loving. And I did it. And it totally changed my whole life because I went from being a rageful kid and in not like a month, not 6 months, not like, 5 years, in literally 1 minute, literally a millisecond, becoming a loving person. I've never been rageful again ever since. This is coming from a kid who would break things. This is coming from a kid who would draw on the walls. And one day I just made a choice, just like somebody can choose to quit smoking or choose to quit drinking. I chose to quit being rageful and to love my mom. So there was a moment and I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm ready. It's happening. Now's the time. And I was out in my hallway and my mom was walking towards my room and she had this fierce look on her face and that feeling came up, that bubble. And the choice arose about, do I yell and scream and react or do I let it go? Do I get off it and act in a way that's consistent with what I'm trying to create? And I did. And I gave her a big hug and I told her how beautiful she looked. And I said everything that was the exact opposite of what I felt. And it was the spell, the trance of rage was totally broken forever in my life. That's all it takes. Really, it just takes one moment to build enough momentum for somebody to carry through with that for the rest of their life. So yeah, I would say that that was a very pivotal, counterintuitive moment in my life. And I've learned from that ever since. Because so often the trick towards transforming our lives is to do the very opposite. We were talking about Byron Katie earlier. And her work works because people turn around the thought. They go from, I will never experience the feeling of shame again and putting myself in a shameful experience to, I look forward to putting myself in a shameful experience. And it breaks the trance over in one instant.
Yeah, absolutely love that. What it made me think about in my life is I used to look away from conflict and responsibility. So for example, if I was in the car, or let's say I was at a restaurant and somebody I was with didn't like their food and was telling the waitress they didn't like the food, I would like cringe and like look the other way out of discomfort. And I'd say the same kind of thing happened in terms of responsibility when, I'd maybe see someone drop their groceries or, fall or something like that. And I just look the other way and like hope that somebody else would just like go in and help.
Yeah.
And what I've learned is that that's not the way that I have to be. Like I was never proud of myself when I'd look the other way or like, I'd beat myself up. Oh, I'm just not courageous enough to stand in it, in an uncomfortable moment when somebody else is perhaps treating someone in a way that I wouldn't necessarily treat them. And instead of standing up for maybe them or for myself, I get smaller and turn the other way. And I found that it's a conscious choice and it's like pressing into it and striving to be the man I want to be versus subscribing to some belief about myself that I wasn't proud of. Mm-hmm. And now when I see something happen, 20, 30 feet away, I'm quick to jump in and try to offer support. And that's something that I'm proud of versus being small and looking the other way.
When you said that, there's a moment that comes to mind. It's a really profound moment in my life where I was on a ski trip with my father and we were about to get on the ski lift and I probably did something. And my dad was just like totally beating up on me. He was yelling at me and he was hitting me and he was doing all this stuff. And he wasn't like punching me and pummeling my face, but it was enough that some random guy came up and like pulled my father away from me. it started yelling at him, and they got into a fight. And I think that the reason why that came up to me is that I can only imagine how much courage that took for that man to intervene, just because he saw something in his heart. Not saying whether or not it was appropriate, right, wrong, it doesn't matter. But it was in his heart to say something, to stand up. And there's something that has become such a theme for me around this Yeats poem, which I love. And the lines are, the best lack all conviction while the worst are filled with passionate intensity. And that's just such a true situation. So many people, they know the right answer. They know what's good and true and beautiful in their heart, but they've been trained to hold themselves back. They've been trained to play small. So they don't speak up. And the people that do speak up have all the worst opinions. And there's an imbalance there, which causes such great divides and rifts in our world. So yeah, that inquiry to me is the most important inquiry.
What's been another major breakthrough for you? And what did it take for you to break through it?
Well, I mean, one of the most major recent breakthroughs was evolving out of being a talent manager, evolving out of my tech businesses, evolving out of the CFD, all of that. And it was a major breakthrough because, and I it took me the last 4 years of going to everything that Tony Robbins does, besides all my other personal training stuff, in order to really get it, to really, 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 really get it. And one of the things that Tony teaches is around the 6 human needs, which is pretty brilliant. I mean, I tried to recreate this a million times in my life, but he, I think, nailed it. And one of the needs is the need for certainty. I'll just go through them real quick. So there's the need for certainty. There's the need for uncertainty. That's variety. So when you know what tomorrow and the next day and the next 10 years of your life bring, you get bored and you need variety in your life. That's adventure. Then there's the need for significance, the need for love and connection, the need for growth and contribution. So those are the 6 human needs. And the first 4 exist almost in opposite polarities. So the more certainty you have, probably the less uncertainty you have in your life. The more significance you have, the less connection you have with other people. So what Tony talks about is that when you have, each of us have a top 2 need that we meet in our life. So the person who behaves in the world with growth and uncertainty as their top 2 needs is very different than the person who behaves in the world from certainty and love. Totally different lives. You don't need to know this person, but you know they're going to act differently if they have an opportunity in order to take a job that moves them away from their friends and family where they live. So I had never recognized how so much of my life path was based on certainty and significance, even though I was a growth and contribution type person. Meaning my plan was to become a world famous entrepreneur, talent manager, this and that, to have hugely successful artists and to prove myself and to become significant in that world so that I could demonstrate my credibility in my ability to help people transform their lives and make a lot of money and do all of these things. And that was the only reason why I hadn't started developing my artistry, my career path, what I was truly passionate about. And then I thought to myself, well, what would happen the day that I decided to do all of that? And even if I was the most successful person in the world at it, in my previous career, what I found is that there's like a non-fungibility to things, meaning, cash might be fungible, meaning if you've got, 20 yen, it converts to $20. But having 20 people who love what you have to say about authenticity is different than having 20 people that want to listen to what you have to say about entrepreneurship. And, nowhere is that more true than in sports. I mean, you have Michael Jordan, who's one of the most amazing basketball players in the world, but that didn't make him one of the best baseball players in the world, So there's sort of a non-fungibility to domain. So I could become the most famous person in the world in the entertainment music business, but that wouldn't make me an extremely powerful, masterful facilitator. And my goal, my vision was to be an extremely powerful, masterful facilitator to transform hundreds of thousands of people's lives, to popularize transformation work so that it became as salutogenic and as accessible to people as physical fitness. And I just realized like I could spend the next 40 years going down the wrong path just to spend another 40 years training down the right path. So why wait? Just start now.
Made me think, when do you feel like you're in greatest contribution and when do you feel like you're in least contribution?
What's interesting to me about that question is that, again, my philosopher comes out, and I think that there is no point when we're not in greatest or least contribution. And I think it's actually a dangerous paradox that we could get caught up in, because the times of my life that I was most monstrous could have caused the greatest breakthroughs for other people. And nowhere is that more true than, again, Byron Katie. So I'm good friends with Roxanne Katie, or Burroughs, Byron's daughter. And literally Roxanne will tell a story about how she enlightened her mother. Roxanne will say that when she was in the worst period of her entire life, doing drugs, I think maybe going to prison, starting fights, whatever craziness she was involved in, it pushed her mother so far that her mother's ego totally cracked, and she became the enlightened Byron Katie that's now gone on to help millions of people. And let's just say that Roxanne had been the perfect daughter, then we would not have the work of Byron Katie today. So there's nowhere where we're not in contribution. And I think that it was something that I struggled with a lot in college because I was really torn between deontology and consequentialism. Because consequentialism makes so much sense as an ethical theory, the greatest good for the greatest number. And good is measured in terms of utils. And this is like, Jeremy Bentham's utilitarianism, thinking through, is it better to kill one person to save the world versus letting the world die and not killing that child? And the problem is that it sets up this false dichotomy that value is exchanged in an immediate mode. And what I realize is that if we actually zoom out and we take a larger perspective, not the perspective of, 1 week's time, but the perspective of 60 years time, 600 years time, a society converges. There's nothing that anyone can do. There's nothing ISIS can do to stop the convergence of the good in humanity. The only thing that they could do is maybe bomb the whole world and kill us all. But I don't think that that's ever going to happen. And we might live in the dark ages right now. I don't think so. I think we live in the greatest utopia of all time. But society will always converge. That's Darwinism. It's adaptation and evolution. We can't even fight the process. It just naturally happens. The civil rights movement is inevitable. I mean, female empowerment is inevitable. Equal rights is inevitable. It's not like it takes a leader in order to make that happen. It's just inevitable. It will always happen because it's good, and humanity converges towards the greatest good for the greatest number, even if atrocities occur along the way. So
it's a great reminder for what's going on today.
It's such a funny thing to me because it's like I only see good. We were talking earlier about, where I feel most insecure. Well, it's around people who see bad, who come from a victim mentality. I just can't do it. I only see good. It's so fucked up. I mean, literally, you'll tell me that somebody just died, and all I can think about is what's good about that. And maybe that's a question I've trained myself for, but I definitely say that question a lot. And it's because what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong are always available to us in every moment.
Yeah. As a coach, that's one of the places that I go to a lot. Yet it's more challenging for me to believe that when I get caught up in a situation in my own life. So that's really impressive.
In what way?
Yeah, in what way? So we'll look at my love life. That's something that's real for me that we were talking about earlier, in that I'm committed to finding an amazing partner and a woman that I can build a family with. And in order to be in a relationship, it requires me to put myself out there and to date and to see what I like, what I don't like, to get closer to this woman that I envision. And sometimes along the way, I'll have dates that don't go well, or maybe even a few dates that don't go well. And then I'll get down on myself, even though I could easily tell myself the story. She's just not my person. Yeah. And that it's beautiful. And I got to share that great moment and meet a new friend. Yet I still subscribe sometimes, not all the time, to stories like, it's just not my time, or maybe I'm not lovable in a sustainable way. So I have the intellect as to what's going to be the productive story to tell myself, but I don't always subscribe to that station, at least up front.
So when that thought arises, you could either believe it and choose to believe it because it came out of your mind, so to speak, or you could reject it, just like you could reject the thought like, I don't have time, or you could reject the thought like, oh, like, I want to kill this person. I mean, most people aren't killers because when they think to themselves, oh, Susie, what a bitch, I want to kill her, realize that it's not real, so they don't really believe their thoughts, just like we don't believe everything people tell us. But when we start believing all of our thoughts, we scare the shit out of ourselves. We scare the shit out of ourselves because we start believing things that aren't real. We start looking at images of people in magazines thinking that that's what beauty is, when the images are totally photoshopped, when literally an ad has been created to give us a false perception of what a good life is. One of my favorite learning lessons in college was I was taking this class on intimate relationships. And it was a TA, got up and started talking about this phenomenon called pluralistic ignorance. And it's one of the most powerful ideas that I've ever learned. And essentially what she said is that more kids today are having sex at a very young age because they look at media, and in the media, they see kids having sex at a young age. So they think that that's what the norm is. So then they start having sex at a young age. And it's called pluralistic ignorance. I think you're doing it, so I think it's the norm, so I start doing it. And it creates such craziness. And literally in like 17 whatever, Kant said that enlightenment is having the courage to use your own reason. And most people are not enlightened because they don't have any courage to use their own reason, to be vulnerable, to stand against the flow and say, that doesn't make any sense. And I think that the greatest power we have is to ask questions and to question things. Most people, especially in the 21st century, if you're a millennial, I'm 26 years old, if you're basically under 40 today, we've been raised by a generation of hippies that failed in their pursuit of creating a free love movement and went into entrepreneurship. So we all think that we need to be billionaires and also save the world. And it's really fucked up. There's a lot of pressure there. And I think that what that leaves us disconnected from is the reality of pain in the human experience. But I mean, can you imagine what it must have been like for our early ancestors during the Pleistocene, during the freaking Ice Age, not having a place to stay and having to migrate where there's no food and people are starving to death and dying when they're, literally 14 years old? That's a long life. I mean, that's an incredible amount of pain. We live in such a utopia today, and people are complaining. They're always complaining because that's what it means to be human. We complain, we compare, and we want things better than they are now. So the distance there causes pain. And instead of going through the pain, we continue to go through the pain because we're not willing to change. We're not willing to take action. And, anytime like that occurs for me, anytime someone's telling me about the pain that they experience in their life, I just know that there's an inauthenticity there because we only do what we want to do. It's not possible for you to not do what you want to do. And people will be like, no, I don't want to be going through this with my boyfriend right now and be in this argument, in this fight, or to be single or to whatever. And it's like, yes, you do. Because if it was so painful to you to be in that situation, so utterly painful, like your feet were being shocked, you jump, you move, you do something else. So it's pain that creates the maximum amount of change. That's why anyone changes.
Yeah.
And, most people, they want to change other people in their life. Right. And they wonder, how do I do that? And they go like, why can't I get my father to listen to me more? And I mean, that's like it's a much bigger topic. But the thing is that nobody changes unless they have enough pain or pleasure. It just doesn't happen. And that's true with us too.
Absolutely. Where is the place in your life where you feel like you'd like to hit that point that creates the change? Is there a certain subject or thing that you're working on?
Yes. Yeah. One of the things that I'm working on right now is sales. In this sort of transformational world euphemism, enrollment.
Right.
It's like, it's not like we're helping people commit suicide. It's just euthanasia, right? It's like we can hide
creating a win-win situation.
Yeah, exactly. Dysphemisms and euphemisms. Yeah. So in enrollment and sales, and especially in selling the work that I do, I'm in an interesting place because I feel in medical school for myself. I'm still in my Hogwarts cave training. And the next growth level for me will be explosive enrollment. meaning just going all out. Because I believe that at this point, and I've had enough experience to back this up, that what I offer the world is not just valuable, it's essential. And if people don't have access to what I offer, and it's like what you offer, it's what so many people in our line of work offer, they don't suffer. The whole fucking world suffers. It's a big deal to me. When someone's sitting in front of me and they've got a problem, I don't take it lightly. I don't think to myself, okay, cool, we'll kind of look at this and then we'll come back at it. And over the course of 6 months, maybe there'll be an impact. I'm like, we deal with this fucking now. We pull this thorn out now. Because it's life or death. That person could literally die tomorrow. Not necessarily because they have some sort of thorn in their side, but because they get hit by a car. And if they don't contribute their gift between now and then, the whole world suffers. I had somebody say to me the other day at the end of one of my things, and he said to me, of course, to bring it out at the end of, right at the end, he said, oh no, I'll do all that. But what I'll never do is tell my parents that I love them. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, couldn't you have brought this up 45 minutes earlier? We could have really looked at this. Because what if one of his parents dies in the next day? What if he fucking dies without having fully communicated his love? Do you know the pain that's caused? Who said this? But there's a great poet who said that the bitterest tears shed over graves are shed for what was left unsaid and left undone. And I don't want to live like that. I'm so committed to not living like that.
We got one more question before we get into the truth challenge.
Okay.
And I've got my Winning Weeks mastermind program. So I love to ask my guests, what is a winning week for you?
Wow. Oh, that's the question?
Yeah.
So clear. A winning week is a week of absolute integrity where I stay on schedule. When I set a schedule for myself. Right now, my schedule is I wake up early. I do 2 hours of a mental exercise and physical exercise. I do about 6 hours or so of writing and research. And then I do about 3-4 hours of study and rehearsal. And then the rest of the night I spend rehearsal or I go to a class or something like that. That to me is such a winning week.
Love that you focused on the word integrity. And to me, I completely agree. If there's things that we want to accomplish in the week or things we want to manifest in the week, we're not going to feel good about ourselves if we're not living in integrity with our vision or what we strive to be. So I think that that's a great barometer.
Man, it's so big.
Yeah.
It's so big.
In my opinion, I feel like there is a lack of integrity, just like there's, in my opinion, a lack of authenticity as well. And it starts with the fact that it's just so easy to renegotiate with ourselves.
It's all, I mean, literally, that's what most people do every single day of their life. And Landmark says something which I finally understood. They said, live an unreasonable life. Be unreasonable. And the reason why they say that is because what takes people out of integrity is reasons. And you're like, what the hell do I mean by that? Well, if you're committed to waking up early and doing 2 hours of mental exercise and the alarm clock hits 6 a.m., and your eyes are up and you start thinking to yourself, oh, but I'm so tired, and oh, but I'll be more effective if I just sleep in a few more hours, and I've got this big thing later tonight, so I'm just going to hit snooze and not do it. You've made very reasonable choices. I'm saying this is personal experience for me. Make really reasonable choices, but it's totally out of integrity. And in order to stay in integrity, you have to be unreasonable because life will happen. And either you stay committed to what you're committed to, or you allow reasons to just throw you like a flag in the wind. And it's very tough because somebody could decide today, I'm deciding to be loving, like I said to my mother. And then after they make the declaration, their mother calls them and starts nagging at them. And they're like, well, no, I'm not going to do it right now because my mother deserves to know how much of a bitch she is right now. And that'll never work. That'll never get anyone what they want.
I do have one more question. I just got to ask you because I've heard it every 10 minutes. So your watch the alarm goes off. What? I think you turned it off.
Okay.
But
sorry about that.
Since we've been hanging out today, I've been noticing like about every 10 minutes your alarm goes off. So I'm just curious as to why you do that and how that serves you.
Wow. The easiest way to explain it, I've been doing it way before I ever heard this, but the founder of IKEA set an alarm every 10 minutes. And he said, a great day for me is a day where no 10 minutes of time is wasted. And 10 minutes for me has always been a really solid chunk of time. And what's funny is that there's a both and here, because what I've learned is that sometimes I hear it going off and sometimes I don't. And when I hear it going off, it's a reminder to me to come back to the present moment. And it's a reminder to me to stay and recommit to what I want to create in my life. Whether or not that's, okay, I've just got distracted researching this subject, going back to writing. I've just went on this tangent in a meditation, in an inquiry, come back to the subject. Or when I don't hear it, it means I'm so utterly immersed in whatever I'm doing that I'm in the flow. I'm in that beautiful place of being in complete self-expression. I mean, it's just such a win-win. It's so freaking cool. It's a wake-up call every 10 minutes, and when I don't awake, it means I am completely immersed in my living experience.
It is time for the truth challenge.
Okay.
So I have 5 questions that I've come up with specifically for you.
Oh, shit.
You're going to have 30 seconds to answer each. So be straight and to the point with these. And it's your job to answer them honestly and authentically. So do you accept the challenge?
I do.
All right. The truth challenge with the one and only Benjamin Rolnik. Question number 1, Benjamin. How come you still live at home?
Great question. So, few answers to that. First is that I'm a man who likes really humble things. So, I don't really buy clothes. I don't really change my clothes. For the last 3 years, I wore the same 2 pairs of pants and only white shirts and then different cashmere sweaters. And I don't want to spend money on something that isn't meaningful to me. And I thought to myself, the only reason to move out is to actually start a family, to live with women. But then I thought to myself, well, I could bring any woman back to my house. And I love my mom. And for the last 4 years, we've worked together as partners from the home. So it's been a great arrangement.
Question number 2, and you alluded to the fact that you recently cut all your hair off. You had really long hair and a huge beard. So what were you telling yourself when looking in the mirror with a full beard and long hair? And what are you telling yourself now when you look in the mirror?
Wow, such an interesting question. Literally nothing either time, because I don't really look in the mirror. Because I grew my unibrow out when I was about 13 years old, when I really was image conscious and I plucked my eyebrows every night. And I did it because I wanted to challenge myself to not care about my image.
5 seconds.
So what do I say to myself? I say love. I say you're awesome. And I say, who cares?
Question number 3. What is something that you are embarrassed to admit or that you just don't speak about publicly, but you'll share anyways because it could help someone?
Wow, I think my small dick is like the first thing that comes up. And my hairy ass, my hairy gooch, I don't know.
It does come up though. That's the important factor.
When you say it comes up, yeah. By the way, I went on a few dates with this woman who was like so incredibly amazing. And I remember I had like these amazing trauma responses in my body of feeling myself like, oh my God, she's going to discover me. She's going to discover I've got a small dick and reject me. And the more I confront that, the less power it has over me.
Question number 4. What role has privilege played in your life?
Everything. I'm so fucking privileged. And it's played a role in a sense where I've denied my privilege and fought against it and made to feel like a horrible person because I had it. But today I use it. I've got $100,000 invested in my training, not as just an educated person, but as a facilitator, as a transformation master, in a mastery. And I get to use that without worrying about making money. So all I need to do is help people and give back and contribute. And some people have made me wrong for that in my life, but it's been such a gift to be able to just help people without worrying about what I'm getting in return.
Question number 5. What does it mean to live a good life, and what's the best way of doing it?
No!
That's your question.
No! The bane of my existence question! So the best answer that I can come up with for that is that it exists in the midpoint between authenticity and integrity, which I call congruence. That's a deep inquiry. And that's the best answer I can give for it right now.
The Truth Challenge with the one and only Benjamin Rolnik. Thank you so much. That was so honest.
Wow.
I asked you tough questions.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for pushing me. And thank you for bringing it. By the way, we had a 2-hour-long conversation before this podcast.
Yeah.
That was so enjoyable.
It was so good. I know. I was thinking we should have mic'd that up as well.
So thank you. I've learned so much from this. I get to learn hearing myself because, I mean, it's like I am myself, but I'm also not too. So there's two parts to me.
I mean, that's the value of somebody else just asking honest questions and answering them honestly and authentically and being willing to go there. So thank you for going there with me.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah. And so, Ben, let's wrap up this show. What can we do to support you?
Wow. I think the biggest support for me is people confronting love and authenticity in their lives and making the choice to let go of their ego conversations and to own what they want to create in the world. Because that's the world I want to live in. My vision's really simple. My vision is I want to be able to go to any Starbucks in the world in a really awful mood, and the random strangers there break me out of that state and uplift me, because strangers care about strangers and they don't tolerate people in bad moods, because it's a place of disconnection and disengagement and actually weakness and fear. Whereas for people to be courageous and vulnerable and to step up, our world would be so much more beautiful than it is today.
Amen. I totally agree. And I also want to press in further on that question. What can we do to support you specifically and personally?
Interesting. Well, I'm assuming what you mean by that is like, what do I do with my life, like business wise?
There's just like a million ways that we can all be personally supported. So, for example, for me, it'd be someone sharing my podcast or talking about Winning Weeks, signing up for Winning Weeks, introducing me to a prospective guest for the podcast. Those are a few ways that I could be supported.
So my mission is really to end suffering. And the thing is, I love working with people who are really fucking suffering, because I've been there. I've been to hell and I don't like staying there. So it's part of my mission to end suffering. So if somebody out there knows somebody who's really suffering, to get in touch with me so that I can support them and help them.
And where can they find you?
Probably the best way is just to email me. I'm still underground. I'm still transformation's best kept secret. Not out loud yet. They could find me at one of my Star Labs, which I do weekly now in LA, that I just started up, and who knows what else. But my email is, can I say it?
Yeah, please. I mean, if you want me to hit you up.
BENROLNIK at gmail.com. BENROLNIK at gmail.com. And but I really mean it. The best thing that somebody can do to support my mission in life is to take action in their own life to become integrally fit. It has nothing to do with what I offer. I'm just a flavor. For them to take Winning Weeks is a contribution to me. For them to go to MITT is a contribution to me. For them to go to Tony Robbins is a contribution to me. To do whatever they can to get emotionally, mentally, and spiritually fit. That's why I'm here. That's my purpose.
You're such a good man. I fucking love you.
I'm privileged though, so
so am I. So I do want to add to that, Ben, because you're a master facilitator. I've seen you in action. You're a master leader as well. So everyone, if you've really enjoyed this conversation, I highly recommend going to a Star Lab event or connecting with Ben, or even checking out his Facebook page. He's been making these incredible short form videos that are really, really powerful. And you're really a phenomenal storyteller and use great analogies. Like, I'm kind of surprised you're not a rabbi. We didn't really have time to get into that. Maybe the next time. Yeah, maybe next time we do a podcast, we'll go into religion or some other subjects. But yeah, check out Ben's Facebook page. Check out him in action facilitating, because he's absolutely incredible.
Thank you. As are you. And what you're creating here, it's so powerful. I was saying to Mark earlier today that one of his superpowers is the ability to transmit magnanimous presence that draws people in. Every time I'm in your presence, I feel that field of self-acceptance, in the words of Robert Frost, that we love the things we love for what they are, not what we think they ought to be. And I feel absolutely accepted and in the field of acceptance when I'm around you. And it's such a gift to transmit. So thank you.
Thank you. The feeling is so mutual. I learned so much from you, and you gave me some great wisdom and insight on my love life before we got into this episode. So thank you, Ben. To wrap this up, what final words of wisdom, advice, perhaps something you really stand for that you haven't had a chance to share here in today's episode, do you want to leave listeners of the One and Only podcast with?
Wow. Can I share a poem?
Yeah.
So we spoke about love earlier today. Actually, this is it for me. So the most extraordinary thing I think people can do today is to live an ordinary life. Living an ordinary life today is the most extraordinary thing any of us can do in the fight for relevancy, in the fight against scarcity, because there's no winning that battle. There's never enough unless we are enough. And there's a poem that I love because it's not romantic love. And it's a poem that changed my whole view on love and my whole view on relationships, that merges this eternal yin-yang balance between companionate love and passionate love, where people pursue one or the other, authenticity or integrity. And it's by a poet named Young Lee. And it goes, so we're dust, so we're dust. But in the meantime, my wife and I make the bed. Holding opposite edges, we raise the sheets, billowing, then pull it tight, measuring by eye as it falls into alignment. We tug, fold, tuck. We tug, fold, tuck. And if I'm lucky, she'll remember a recent dream and tell me. One day we'll lie down and not get up. One day all we guard will be surrendered. Until then, we'll go on learning to recognize what we love, and how to tend to things that aren't for our keeping. So often, fear has led me to abandon what I know I must relinquish in time. So often, fear has led me to abandon what I know I must relinquish in time. But for the moment, I'll listen to her dream, and she to mine, our mutual hearing calling more and more detail into the light of a joint in fragile keeping.
The one and only Benjamin Rolnik. Ben, this has been so much fun. I'm glad that the 8-year-old Ben is back and thriving and maturing so beautifully. And,
Dematuring. Excuse me.
And I'm really glad that your thought that you're going to die at 25, I'm glad that that didn't happen.
Thank you.
Love you, brother.
Love you too.
Thank you for tuning into today's show with the one and only Benjamin Rolnik. And holy moly, did Ben bring it today. Loved his openness, his honesty, and straight up uplifting inspiration. I'm curious to hear what came alive for you as you were listening to today's show. So feel free to let me know on Instagram or Twitter, or you can email me, mark@areyoubeingrreal.com. And if you enjoyed today's show, please pay it forward and share this episode with someone that you love or someone else that you think would really enjoy and benefit from Ben's message, as well as his openness. The link for today's show is the oneandonlypodcast.com/102 or areyoubeingrreal.com/102. I always appreciate when you share my work if you're enjoying it, so thanks in advance for doing that. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, check out my free daily inspiration series called Winning Inspiration. You can sign up at areyoubeingrreal.com. I also mentioned at the top of the episode, the next cycle of Winning Weeks, my 8-week mastermind for high performers, starts in late March. Check it out. Sign up to get a 50% discount at winningweeks.com. And lastly, I've been doing a number of interviews lately. It's been really cool to be put on the hot seat myself and the opportunity to speak my truth and to share my voice and some of my perspective as to how I see the world. So I've been interviewed a number of times in the last few weeks. So if you're interested in checking out any of those interviews, go ahead and do so. I was on the deep dive with Adam Roa, really fun chat with Adam, who's going to be a guest on the one and only here in the next couple of weeks. I was also interviewed on Dreams Over Drinks, a cool Instagram series. So you can check that out and find that on my Instagram page. And I'm going to be featured in Apartment Therapy. My house is going to be featured in that. So watch out for that one coming in a couple of weeks. So that's it for today's show, and enough about me. I hope that you're having an absolutely beautiful week, that you're daring greatly, kicking ass, and have an absolutely amazing week ahead. We'll see you right back here next week. After spending the first 30 years of my life trying to gain love and acceptance, doing and saying whatever I perceived was necessary to get it, I still came up short and felt worse about myself in the process. Today, I'm committed to living an authentic life I'm proud of, and I invite you to join me by fully embracing the unique gift you are to the world. Learn more about this show at makeyourmarktoday.com and share this with your family and friends, and feel free to subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. Have fun, be the one and only you, and make your mark today.